Your habits control your future, and it takes an immense amount of discipline to be committed to your habits. In this episode, I'm joined by transformational coach and speaker John Marrone, and we dive into a conversation about habits, growth, and leadership. Tune in and learn the number one question you have to ask yourself daily: why leadership is truly a lifestyle, and how John went from being homeless, an addict, and in jail to dedicating his life to helping others create the ultimate version of themselves. Today's episode is sponsored by my advanced digital training, Unleashed and Unapologetic: How to Become a Thought Leader and Build a Cult Following. If you are seeking to bring your purpose to the masses and you want to gain visibility to do so, I highly recommend that you enroll for the UNU training at rubyfremont.com/unleashed. Check out the link in the show notes. Now it is time to dive deep into growth with John Marrone.
Welcome to today's Thought Leader, where I'm challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. I'm your host, Ruby Fremont, and I'm here as a catalyst for you, the new generation of thought leaders. Join me every week as I dive into raw and real conversations that will help you amplify your presence, influence, and impact.
Hey, thought leaders, I am back with a special guest who we connected on Instagram actually just recently. So it's really cool to have him on today's Thought Leader today. John Marrone, welcome to the show.
What is going on? How are you doing today?
I'm awesome. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Super, super grateful to be on your show. Thank you so much. And glad I kind of slid into your DMs there.
That you did. Yeah, it's really cool what I've been poking around your stuff and looking at the way in which you are showing up online and serving your audience. And it's been incredible just to witness you. And what I can say for certain is that you are relentlessly showing up for your mission. And that is something that I really honor in you. It's something that I think a lot of leaders aspire to do, but don't actually do.
I agree. And I think what that comes down to is they haven't found their true self yet. And that's why they're not showing up consistently, because it's that battle within. Shawn Mendes actually watched a commercial. He said something so true. He had said, the hardest thing you could do is be authentically you. Mm-hmm. And once you find that, though, I mean, it's smooth sailing, but I think it is a struggle that a lot of thought leaders have the issue with, because they have the comparison feel, or maybe what other people are going to think of me. So I appreciate that you noticed it. It's definitely been a process, and I'm glad I arrived.
Yeah. It's, what you said about authenticity. Yes, definitely. It's one of the hardest things we can do, but it's also because the majority of the population doesn't know who the fuck they are. Right? Like you're born into this world, and you're born as you, and then all of a sudden you're projected upon like all these belief systems, all this programming, society's view of who you need to be and how you need to do things, putting you in a box. And then all of a sudden we grow up and we're like, hey, I don't know who I am. What is going on? And so we end up with this like moment. And I think everyone kind of goes through this moment, especially if you're in the personal development field, whether you're working in it or you've dove into it. It's that moment of realization of, I don't know who I am. And I need to uncover who that is, because you can't be authentic if you don't know who you are.
Yeah, 100% true. Yeah, I mean, you definitely can't. And like you said, it's a process, right? It's definitely a process. And it's that battle that I think that a lot of people don't want to go up against, because it starts getting you uncomfortable, and you start possibly losing some people that you thought were friends. And there's just so many different things to talk about in just that one subject. I mean, we could probably do 5 podcasts with it. Right.
Yeah. And so why don't we bring it back? Because I think this is going to be interesting for our listeners. In your past, we've had addiction, homelessness, you've been in jail, there's been violence, depression. And now here you are emerging as a coach, as a speaker, as a thought leader, and really, again, like relentlessly pursuing your mission. So you obviously had that moment of realization, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, you would think it would have came a lot earlier, right? From being homeless, like you said, to the addiction. And I mean, I don't know how many times I had close calls, right? Of I should have definitely OD'd, or going to jail and sitting in jail, or sitting there in a motel. I mean, so many things that I did to myself, honestly, that should have woken me up. But what it came down to was the fear of death. And what I mean by that is, so I went through my whole life with being characterized and this emotional, characteristics that were looked on me as like, hey, look, he's negative. He wants to fight everybody. He's an addict. And that's just who he is and who he's always going to be. So I played that role, and I played that role damn good. And I mean, I was the fucking best at that role. And so good that it put me behind bars. And, I met a gentleman named Pat Necarato. He's a Christian man. And, after everything, getting out of jail and everything, he like basically took me under his wing. He's like, dude, like, you are who I was many years ago, and you're living a life that you're not supposed to live. There's so much more for you out there. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, you have a job for me, right? Like, you have money for me. Cause that's basically what I looked at. I was so selfish. I was so income driven. And he said, yeah, but there's two things I'm going to want you to do. I'm going to show you how to uncover who you truly are, but you got to truly go after that. And I said, absolutely, I will. And he said, number two is give back what you learned to others. Now, Ruby, I said yes because I wanted one thing, and that was the money, right? I wanted the money. I wanted the job because that solved all my problems, air quotes. But after 2 years, I started getting better. He showed me how to be a master salesman and how to truly add value to businesses and help them grow. Cool, great. But the problem was I didn't take it as serious as I should until the end of October 2012, where I lived in New Jersey at the time. Hurricane Sandy came around, and being selfish again, being stubborn. Look, I'm Italian. I'm from Jersey. Like, that's a bad recipe for one stubborn ass guy. And that was me. So I stayed in my job. I went from homeless to jail, couch hopping, motel, apartment, finally got a house, rented, but finally got a house. And I was 3 weeks before Hurricane Sandy hit, but I had to get all new furniture. It's a big moment for us.
Right.
So Hurricane Sandy comes through October 29, 2012. And I didn't think anything of it. Nothing bad could happen to me, right? I mean, I survived, I don't know how many times doing cocaine and going through jail. Like, I survived that. The hurricane's not going to bother me. Well, around 8 o'clock or so at night, I had my family there because I rescued my mom, my father from their motel over by the beach. And I remember clear as day because we're playing Monopoly. And the reason why I remember is because not often do we play Monopoly, right? I mean, it wasn't very often we got together like that. I remember sitting there in a room, and it's a one story, and I saw all of a sudden in the living room, trickle, trickle, trickle. And I looked, and I saw water, and which is crazy to me because I was outside an hour before that. The wind was whipping, but there was no rain.
Right.
And then I said, this is weird. How's there water in our house? And as I sloshed through the water, I opened the door. We lived on about a 4-foot like elevation and like a little hill. And I realized that the surge busted through the whole barrier islands. We had 4 feet of roaring rapids outside. And in that instant, I thought the one thing that really I needed to do, not save my family, but put my furniture up. And so as I'm doing that, the water comes crushing through the foundation, and now it's flooding. I get everybody upstairs, and the ladder of the attic is down, and the water, Ruby's just one rung by the next rung, and you hear dump, 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 and the tree's about to come through the roof, and the water's rising, tree's about to come through the roof, and it's in that moment. In that moment, I had the shift, and that shift was I said a word that I'd never used in that kind of context before, and that word was, what impact have I made? And it kind of surprised me because I looked around and I literally said something I never really even understood the word and what it meant. And I looked around and said, what impact have I made? I've literally done nothing in this world. Like, I've done nothing to help better the quality of life of the human beings around me. Look what I've done to them. And fast forward, the water receded. We got rescued by a big front loader and we lived in a shelter, but it still wasn't that. Like, it was that was still in the back of my mind. But then I realized I don't know what I don't know. And that's when it hit. When I was sitting in the shelter and I realized I don't have the answers to create an impact. I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to create an impact in my own life. How can I create an impact in anybody else's? And when the man who used to be stubborn and thought he knew everything said the words, I don't know what I don't know, that was like everything just peeled off me, and I was open to so many more possibilities. And I just started studying the best of the best, men, women, white, black, Asian, you name it. and of all ages, and I grabbed their content to figure out what made them successful, what really helped them have a fulfillment in their life. Put it into my own life and transform my own life. And now I give it back to tens of thousands of people and as much as I can on many different platforms. But it started with definitely I needed to transform my own life.
Yeah.
And every day I start off that way because I know that's what I need to do in order to continue to transform others. I don't touch the phone or anything until I take an hour to do something to transform my life, my day, and my week, something for personal development every day, because that's how I got there. I can't stop.
Right. And this is something that's so important to talk about, because I think a lot of people look at us as, you know, these leaders that are speaking and they're doing all these great things, but they don't understand is the amount of discipline that it takes to do this work. And what you're describing right now to me is discipline. I mean, first of all, what a powerful story. And this could have gone in 1,000 other different ways, right? But you consciously chose to take it in this direction. And that requires an immense amount of discipline. Yeah. And it's that discipline that a lot of people don't actually see us doing behind the scenes that you and I both know. It's discipline. Like it takes effort. It takes energy to do this. And I don't know about you, but every day I don't necessarily want to get up every day at 5 a.m. and go to the gym, but I fucking do it because I know that afterwards I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to be ready to face my day and face my clients and all of that. But it's so important for people to actually see this and hear this from people like us, because it's not that we just like woke up one day, had an epiphany, and here we are doing these great things. It's like, no, every day we are consistently taking these action steps to better ourselves. And it takes an immense amount of discipline to do so.
Yeah, so much discipline. I think the problem is, though, people don't realize that they can actually control their future, right? They actually control their future because your habits control your future and you control your habits. And that's where people lie. They don't have the discipline. And I find people that they're not committed to their commitments. Like how many people right now, listeners, how many people wrote down goals January 1, or if you did the right way, October of last year, who wrote down goals and have not stayed committed to their commitments? And if you need to honestly just double check, go double check, because you need to be vulnerable in the situation, because that's the first step to growth. You can't be trying to grow without being vulnerable. So the problem with staying committed to your commitments, like you said, is discipline. And discipline comes down to two things, I think. Number one is you got to have a strong enough why. Like you have to. And the reason why is because our life is nothing but the sum of the choices that we make. We all have heard it. And people are like, John, well, how the hell do I make better choices? Well, it's simple. You ask yourself better questions, right? Your quality of life is proportionate to the quality of questions you ask yourself. So you want to be disciplined? Learn how to ask better questions to yourself. But there's a caveat. You got to know your why. So this is a question I ask myself daily. When I don't want to wake up and go to the gym, right? When I got that, little mental midget in my head giving me a chokehold saying, go back to sleep, you're cozy, bro. Or I don't want to, go ahead and push the extra weight at the gym, or I don't want to go ahead and complete that task. All the things that I don't want to do, but I know I need to do it. What do? I ask myself this one question and change my life. And it's simple. It's, does this task get me closer to my goals or further away? It is that simple. And then when I say it gets me closer, I simply ask myself again, John, and why the hell does that matter? Well, it matters because I'm trying to create an impact and influence people to create the ultimate version of them and do it for my family as well. And I bring my why out. And instantly I have the absolute eye awakening. I'm like, oh my God, I got to make this decision. I got to go forward. And without that question, I sit in lieu, right? Either I make the bad decision or I don't make a decision at all. So I ask myself that several times a day. And then the biggest thing, and I think it's the number one habit for successful people. Listeners, listen to this right now. The number one habit I feel personally, and there's 1,000 ways to Sonic. So this is what I feel. It is to be super self-aware. So self-aware that you're so intentional with it that every day at 6 o'clock, whatever it is, at night, calendar pops up and it says, were you self-aware today? And you do a gut check. And you say the 3 habits, I always pick 3, 3 is a magic number, 3 habits that I'm trying to either instill in my life or just continue for, whatever goals I'm trying to hit. Those 3 habits, did I actually follow through? And then I write this down. So, okay, let's just say it's waking up at 5 o'clock.
Mhm.
Okay. Pops up. John, did you wake up at 5 o'clock today? Yes or no? No black or white, guys. Stop with this. Stop lying to yourself. It's bullshit. Like, you're the biggest liar
Mhm.
you know. Just admit it. You're the biggest liar you know. It's not your friend. It's not your mom. It's you. So let's just black and white this. Yes or no? If I say, no, I didn't wake up at 5, the next question is, why the hell didn't I? And be real. I just got drunk last night. I stayed up too late. I didn't ask myself the right question, whatever it might be. And then the last question is, what are you going to do tomorrow differently to go ahead and wake up at 5 o'clock? And every day, just 3, and do that for 60 to 90 days with just 3 habits until it becomes actually, part of your routine, because business as usual. And watch what happens. When you become so self-aware intentionally with the habits and staying disciplined to them, I mean, there's nothing but greatness ahead of you. The problem is you have no processes in place to stay disciplined. You need to,
Right.
but you have no processes in place. And you and I both know motivation, it's temporary.
Mhm.
Right? It's what you do when motivation leaves your body that will create your destiny.
Mhm.
And the way to make a better decision when motivation leaves your body is ask yourself better questions, be super self-aware daily. And that is for every equity, though. Not just your business, not just your health. Like, I want you to have an integrative life. I want every equity to be running on all cylinders. But there will be times you'll be a little lopsided, right? So I'm working on my retreat right now. This week, when I'm doing all my equities, it's a lot of business. And I know that. But what do? I make up for it next week, or I make up for it on a weekend, or I stop at 6 o'clock and I'm an hour and a half full family mode to fulfill that equity. So you just got to be super, super conscious of your self-awareness and understanding your questions are huge. Questions you ask yourself are huge. Because I used to ask myself the wrong questions and I used to get the wrong answers, and that put me behind bars. So
Right. Yeah.
I know both sides of it.
And this is something that there's no end to this, for everyone listening. There's no end to this. This isn't like you're going to do this for a certain amount of time, become who you really want to become, or achieve what you really want to achieve, and then that's it. Like, you're done. This isn't that at all. This is about training yourself to be who you need to be, to do the things that you want to do, to achieve the things that you want to achieve, to experience the things that you want to experience. Because, I always say, like, the reason you haven't experienced yet is because you're not being who you need to experience, who you need to be to experience it, right? The reason why you haven't achieved it is because you're not being who you need to be to achieve it. And the reason why you're not actually pursuing your purpose or your mission is because you're not being the leader that your purpose or mission needs you to be, right? So this is really about being everything. This is really about embodying your message. This is really about, it's so much more than just saying it or even just doing it. It's like it's being it, being the full embodiment of your message and what you stand for, because that in itself is powerful, and that in itself is going to force you to live differently, to make different choices, to show up differently, and in turn amplify the impact that you're here to create, right? This is all an embodiment game. This is all an inner game. And as much as leaders want to focus on their output and what they're putting out into the world and the lives that they are impacting, we have to bring it back home, because that impact starts by first impacting our own lives.
That's so true. So greatness starts within, right? So greatness starts within. 2 things that I want to touch on. You talked about, obviously a lot of people listen to this. You guys are leaders. You need to get it through your head that leadership is a lifestyle. It is not something that you put on your card. It's not something that, you go ahead and you have a title. I'm a leader. No. And if you don't think you're a leader, I'm here to tell you you are, because you don't understand that you probably have at least one person, if not more, that are looking up to you. Mm-hmm. So act as if, right? So leadership's a lifestyle. That's number 1. Number 2 is, to me, I don't think we're human beings. I feel like we're human becomings. And when I say that because there's always these obstacles. And these obstacles just reveal a new version of us. Mm-hmm. So if we stayed as human beings, that obstacle would keep us in that current state. To me, it's like when I bust through that obstacle and I pay respect because it's there for a reason, I am a human becoming. I am the next version of myself. And then I'm the next version of myself. So realize, like she said, it does not stop. So therefore, you are human becoming. And my question to you is, when you're faced with that obstacle, leader, right? When you're faced with that adversity, leader, who are you going to become? Because you got to become the next best you, the next ultimate you. And there's levels to it. There's levels to it, because who you are today versus who you're trying to become, that's the biggest battle you're ever going to endure. It's not the fight with your husband or wife. It's not the deal gone wrong. The biggest battle you'll ever endure, guys, is who you are today and who you're trying to become. And that's it. So what do you want to become? Who do you want to become? What do you want when people go up to your grave and they see your dash? What do you want them to feel? And if you think about that, when you start making decisions, you start making better decisions. But yeah, I mean, I can't say it enough to where you're absolutely right. Like, you know, you need to realize that we are human beings, but like these obstacles that we have in our way, they happen to the most successful people just as much as the most unsuccessful, unfulfilled people. The only difference is we look for that next version of us by breaking through that obstacle and not letting it weigh us down.
Right. And again, it's because it's an opportunity, right?
Yes,
Obstacles are opportunities, and it's an opportunity to shift your behavior, to change something, to see something different, to gain a deeper awareness. It's an opportunity. Everything is an opportunity. And so the real difference between people who succeed or people who fail, or people who lead and people who choose not to lead, is really just an accumulation of your choices and what you do with those opportunities.
Yes. Perspective. Our perspective is key. You know, I was just talking to a buddy, Brandon Myers of mine, and we talked about perspective of words, right? So it is what it is not allowed in my life because the perspective I have on it always followed. It is what it is. We don't have enough money to go to the vacation. I'm sorry. It is what it is. Hey, we got to move out of this house. It is what it is. Hey, we can't pay the rent this month. Can't pay the electric. It is what it is. So always had this negative thought behind it. And so for me, it's now, instead of it is what it is what I make of it. Therefore, I'm able to come up with a solution for that problem. So it is what it is to me. It's like when it's saying it's okay that, you know, we failed, which is okay to fail, but it's okay that we failed, but I'm not giving any kind of solution to get better from it. When I say it is what I make it, I'm able to say, okay, it is what I make it. And I make of it that we're going to go ahead and do things differently by doing Now I have a solution. And so when I told him about that, he's like, but it's also perspective, which is right. Because if my perspective of it is what it is, maybe totally different than yours.
Right.
So if it's an okay perspective, don't try to change it, right? You don't need to change it. If it's not harming you because your perspective is good on it, there's other shit that you need to be working on. Don't be focusing on everything we tell you. You need to be really focusing on what aligns with you and then going from there. I think too many people have information overload. I call it information porn world, right? We live in this information porn world, and yet we need to be in an implementation porn world. It's like when people come up to me, John, what book should I read? I don't know. What the fuck's your problem?
I literally just did a video on this. Like, I'm not going to tell you what books to fucking read. I'm going to tell you to go implement the information out of all the other fucking dozen books that you've read that are now sitting on your nightstand. I'm going to tell you to go implement the information that you've taken from all those dozens of free opt-ins that you've signed up for and done nothing with. Like, that is what I'm going to tell you to do.
It's crazy. It drives me nuts. And it's just because we just love information. It's a distraction from implementing. Information becomes a distraction from implementing. And to me, it's like I said, I don't know what your problem is, so I can't suggest a book to you, because if your problem's losing weight, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you how to become a better leader right now, that's not your problem. Right. We need to talk about your health, right? Maybe that's your biggest obstacle. But even at that, like the knowledge, you already got it. You got some tools up there. The problem is you're not tapping into it. You just let it go in because successful people read books. Yeah, but successful people actually take action on the shit they read, right? People who are fulfilled take action on what they learn. So I want you to learn, take some time off from learning for a minute and go implement. Go implement, right? So what I do when I'm overloaded on information, I have 3 books I read no matter what every day. The Daily Stoic. So it's one little chapter. Maybe it takes me 2 minutes to read. John Maxwell's Daily Reader. So about leaders. And then this one here. Then this one, 200 Ways to Shift Your Thinking. It takes me a total, maybe about 7 minutes to read that. Then I write down one action step from that actually resonated today. And I go and I do it. I'm not trying to read, Think and Grow Rich in one day. Like, that's not it. Like, I'm trying to compartmentalize things so that I'm not information overload. And I think people need to do that. I think they just need to realize that you need to take the information we give you and start taking action, because if you're not taking massive, aggressive, empowering action every damn day, you will live an average life. And if you're okay with that, then be average. I'm not here to tell you that it's right or it's wrong. All I know is my family deserves way better than average. And I'm putting myself into some situations where I need to sacrifice sacrifice in order to make sure that they have the life that they want, and I'm right there beside them, right? So how much are you actually taking action? That's your biggest thing. You're not deciding, you're not taking action. People just fail at that one part. There's 7 levels of change. That taking action level is just the biggest bottleneck for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Because that's the one that requires them to actually do something different and be something different. That's the piece that requires you to start being who you need to be to do the action piece. And that goes against probably everything that you've been doing and this autopilot life that you've been running. And this is also one of the key things that I see missing from the leadership space is a lot of people talking the talk and not really doing and not really being and not really taking action. They get obsessed with learning, with signing up for different masterminds, with doing different programs, with doing different courses, with always getting all the fucking certifications. And then what? And then what?
Yep.
Great. What are you doing with that information? How are you integrating it? How are you implementing it? Because right now your presence is showing up the same. That's just how I see it. And so we need to implement and integrate so that our presence is actually amplified into this next version of who we need to be. And that's what it is. It's just this constant evolution. Learning's not a bad thing, but learning without implementing is a waste of your fucking time and energy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I honestly think this is a big reason why people don't take action. Mm-hmm. Limited beliefs, right? Limited beliefs, because there's something inside of all of us that's greatness. And every time it's about to come out, this limited belief of you're too fat, you're too old, you're too young, you're a woman, you're too tall. Hey, remember when your father raped you, right? Remember when a kid told you that, you weren't good enough? Remember when your husband or your wife cheated on you? And you have this limited belief. It happened, right? For the most part, it probably happened, but you've taken this limited belief and it let you just gorilla you down and hold you down, because every time you're about to feel greatness and you're about to go for it, that limited belief steps in and says, don't take action, stay over here. You're comfortable over here. And it's what our mind does to us. You're comfortable. It protects us, right? You're comfortable over here. The problem comes down to that limited belief, guys, is happening because it was something culturally, right? You grew up that way, an event that happened to you. It might have been something that you said to yourself, but all it is a thought. And a thought is just a thought until you give it life, good and bad. A thought is just a thought until you give it life. Now, this thought you've been thinking over and over and over again of this self-doubt, this self-sabotage, whatever it might be for you listening, it is the thing that is holding you down under the water to where you can't breathe. You will never be able to live the life that you're supposed to live if you don't break through this limited belief. And there's so many different ways to do it, but you got to get real. I need to write down right now, pen and paper, what is the one thing that I know is holding me back? What was the event or the thought that comes to my mind every time I want to take action, right? Every time I want to start my business, every time I want to go ahead and increase my ad spend, whatever the case is, what is the one thing that keeps coming to your mind? And then from there, I want you to do 2 things. One, I want you to create yourself a strategy around it. Tell me all the shit that you can't, why you can't do it. Tell me you want to start a business. Tell me all the reasons now why you can't, right? Tell me why you can't. Tell me why you can't. Write it down. And then when you write it down, from there, now you have your obstacles. Let you see into the future. Now look at that obstacle and tell me, what do you need to do to overcome it? Who do you know that has the answers to overcome it? Now you start your search, right? So you have this goal that you want. Now you have all these obstacles, all the reasons why you can't, but there's still that limited belief that comes in your mind, and a way to crush it. And this is what I do. And I do it physically. And this may sound crazy, but every time that limited belief comes to my mind that, my parents' past is my future, that you're not as educated as the other speakers out there, you don't have all these degrees, whatever the case might be, because this shit still happens. I literally visualize it. I visualize this limited belief, and it's just like I put a little face to it and everything, and I see it. And now when I see it, guys, this is what I want you to do. I want you to visualize that limited belief when it pops in your mind. I want you to choke that bitch out. I want you to hold it, and I want you to squeeze its neck and say, I am in control, not you. And then you put it on the ground, okay? You put it on the ground, and here's the big thing here. You step over it with one foot, showing that it does not control you. Now with the next foot, you step into action. That is the key that you need to make sure that you have. You grab it, you say you're not control, you push on the ground, one step over it, the next foot goes into action, whatever it might be. Do one thing to get you closer to your goals, to go ahead and give you a little bit more conviction that you are worth whatever it is that you want, because you're either living life by fear or by faith, right? And hope is one of the most important things in our life. And when a limited belief comes into our world, that hope dies. And when hope dies, you die a little bit inside each and every time. So have a strategy to overcome your limited beliefs on a daily basis. Grab it, push it on the ground. If that doesn't work for you, that's fine, but find something that does, because until you are able to shed those limited beliefs in the moment, you'll never truly be able to take the action that's needed to create the ultimate version of you.
Right. Well said. And reminder, sometimes the action is what actually sheds the limiting belief. So just do it anyway.
Yes.
Yes. John, we are nearing the end of the episode. I want to ask you, how can our audience stalk you and get more of you online? And then I'll drop those links in the show notes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So on all social media platforms, it's at Real John Marrone. So it's at Real JOHN MARRONE, and that's on social media for Instagram and Facebook, YouTube, you name it. I'll be on there. And then my podcast, The Power of Progression, on all podcast platforms. Amazing people on, just like yourself, Ruby. Ruby's coming on here shortly. And amazing thought leaders, business owners, people that have overcome major adversity. And the whole point of the podcast is to help people get actionable tools to be better today than they were yesterday. Very similar to what you're doing here. But yeah, go ahead and follow me, or johnmarrone.com. You can find out all about me and all my programs and the whole nine. But what I want everybody, if you listen to this and you got value, send me a message. I answer them personally, and tell me what your biggest takeaway was, or tell me your story that you're having struggles with. And I'd love to be able to help you any way I can.
Love it. Awesome. John, thank you so much for bringing it today. I so appreciate you, and I look forward to rocking it out on your podcast.
Absolutely. Look, before we get off, I want everybody to know what you're doing, Ruby, is amazing. Putting the time and effort into these podcasts and into your social media like you do, showing up for the people that need you and when you don't even know that they need you. It's not easy. So for doing that on a consistent basis, and being true to yourself, it's very honestly rare to find that in our space, and just being candid here. So I appreciate you and the people who are following you and looking up to you and seeing what you're doing. They respect that. So from their head to my mouth into your ears, we respect you for what you do. And honestly, your platform that you have right now, from social media to this podcast, you're changing lives. So if you ever feel a doubt that you're not sure, you had that rough day, just know that you're changing more lives than you have any idea. And I appreciate you having me on today and allowing me to be a part of this platform.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate you. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on today's Thought Leader, where I'm challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. If you have a comment or a question or anything to add about today's episode, please message us on social media. And if you dig this episode with me and John, please share it with a friend, hit subscribe, drop a rating and review on iTunes. And I will see you back here on Thursday with a brand new episode of today's Thought Leader.